you do not want the fourth grade version of you running your adult life today. Okay. It's just a bad strategy.
I don't know though, because my fourth grade self was pretty successful and really awesome. Actually, I got A++++. I'm just kidding.
An unspoken expectation is an unfair expectation. So if you have a need that you want your partner to meet, it is your responsibility to communicate it. Once you understand the need, you really understand everything about you. You understand why you do what you do. It is I would say the primal question is the thing underneath the thing that is driving everything. Yeah, number one, I wouldn't start any romantic relationship with somebody if I didn't know their primal question. That's how important it is to know this piece of data.
Every single one of us is living with a driving question. Am I loved? Am I safe? Am I good enough? And when that question doesn't get answered, we start to scramble to try to earn love, even without realizing it sometimes. If this sounds like you, or maybe something you're familiar with, you are listening to the right episode. We are in a season called Relationship Goals, and today we have an expert with us and a good friend, our dear friend Mike Foster, who's going to be unpacking the 7 primal questions and helping you figure out how to heal your core needs so that you can completely change how you show up in dating and how you connect with somebody that you're interested in. JJ, are you excited about this?
Yeah. So fun fact, this is a full circle moment. JP
Yes.
and Mike Foster were the 2 first episodes I listened to of you and Heart of Dating.
No way. I didn't realize that.
And you actually went and did fun therapy with Mike.
Yes, way back in the day.
Man, Mike, welcome to the show. We're so excited, and we're fanboy and fangirling right now.
I'm just excited to be here with you guys. I'm thrilled to be talking about these topics with you. And I think I'm actually going to learn a lot from you guys today, more than you're going to learn from me, but maybe everybody wins in this conversation.
Oh, well, we'll find out about that. I'm so happy to have you on because that voice, man, it's
it's very soothing.
It's so nice. I need you to do just audiobooks to put me to sleep. I can just put it on every night.
Actually, Mike, we have an old one of your meditations. I found it's still somewhere up there on the internet, and it's one of my favorites. Okay, and I still listen to it quite often, and so it's something about your voice, that meditation. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so but we're not talking. Yeah, go ahead.
I've actually had people tell me they listen to my voice to fall asleep at night and would turn on my podcast and they'd fall asleep. I'm like, I think that's a compliment.
I don't know if I should be insulted right now or complimented, but thank you.
It's that and like Morgan Freeman,
I know.
Just
you're like the white Morgan Freeman.
Great voices.
Exactly.
So Mike, you had developed this amazing tool called the 7 Primal Questions. And I want to get right into it. I want to know more about what this is. Can you walk us through what made you want to create it and really what is it so people listening know what this is?
Yeah. So the 7 Primal Questions is really just a framework to help us understand our deepest need and to give language to it, to give a clear understanding of what drives us. And so in many ways, I think we've been doing therapy and coaching and self-improvement in somewhat of a backwards way. We focus, I believe, too much on emotions and behaviors and choices, and we get kind of caught in this drama of life and relationships. And we never get really to the heart of something and to the root of something. And so really the Primal Questions is saying, let's get rid of all the noise, all the complexity, and see if we can identify really what's at the core of who we are as people, how we show up in relationships. And if we can understand the core, then everything else starts to fall into place. But unfortunately, I think a lot of times our relationships, especially our romantic relationships, are what I'd say, if there's a tree, we get caught in the branches of the tree and we're trying to figure out all these branches and we're trimming branches to try to improve the tree. And yet the branches grow back. And the problem is we're just not dealing with the roots. And so again, most of my work as an executive coach and counselor and author, and when I am training people in this model, it's like, let's get to the core. And I believe if we can understand the core, have awareness around the core, then we can really take massive action in our life and our relationships.
So what are those 7 questions? Is there a way that you kind of deciphered it down into 7? And is this you saying there's basically 7 core categorizations? I imagine that might have been hard to cut down too. So you tell me.
Yeah, well, it's been a collection of about 7 years now of research, 100,000 assessments, 22 group labs, about 6,000 hours of one-on-one interviews that come up with the framework. And when I first started this work, it was really just a general understanding of what are the questions that are driving our lives and how they influence our lives, our decisions, our triggers, our relationships, our strengths, our gifts. And so it was kind of open-ended in the early days of the research, was just trying to understand like what question, and really it was a basic sort of question that I asked people. What is the question that is driving your life, that has the most influence over your life? And then we'll whittled it down after hearing a lot of different answers over the years and through the assessments, kind of got it to 12 and then got it to 9 and then got it to 7. And that's about as far as I could whittle it down to. And really the 7 questions all represent a core human need that we have, a primal need. And the question is really just language and a way to understand that need. And so the 7 questions are, am I safe? Which has to do with kind of emotional and physical protection and the need for that protection in our lives. Am I secure? Which has to do with, do I have enough financial resource to navigate my life? This is where kind of money tends to be really important. And often people who are showing up with this question tend to have sort of a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. Question number 3, am I loved? This is really the need to feel seen, to be known, and to be heard and listened to. Question 4 is, am I wanted? This is really the need to be pursued and connected to somebody. That is your deepest need and the deepest driver of your life. Question number 5 is, am I successful? This is really the need to win and to achieve and to really get, these are our Kobe Bryants, our Serena Williams, or Tom. The thing that's driving them is the need to be successful.
Yeah.
Question number 6 is the question, am I good enough? This is the need to be worthy and valued, to really have this sense that you are doing something that matters and your life matters. And then question number 7 is the question, do I have purpose? And really, this is just the need for significance and impact. And interestingly enough, this question, all 7 questions get imprinted in our early childhood. They're basically a question that went unanswered or was confusing. There was a need that was unmet in our early childhood, and we carry it into our adult lives. And so again, sometimes understanding how we show up today in our relationships, we sometimes have to look back and see what was happening in our early childhood, really to understand who we are. And it's not like we have to have this perfect clarity of like what was going on, but many of the things that shape us and have made us who we are today are things that happened in our early upbringing, and really the power of the emotional ecosystem of our family of origin.
Yeah.
We need to understand those things so we can actually have clarity on what makes us tick today.
Yeah. I think a lot of that and answering these questions will also sometimes drive how we're dating and who we're looking for, because sometimes when we're not looking to maybe meet that need, even just first on our own, and we don't really even know what that is, we're somehow subconsciously looking for it from that other person as the primary thing. Would you say that's probably accurate in dating?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, I'm coaching couples, and especially people who are single and looking for a potential mate. One of the things that happens is that need can become so strong and so dominant in our lives that oftentimes we will take sloppy seconds when it comes to that need being met.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. Like oftentimes I will kind of try to bring to awareness somebody who has the need or the question, primal question of, am I loved or am I wanted? And sometimes what happens with those questions is that need is so profound and so powerful and will be contended with that oftentimes we will settle for less than healthy love. We'll settle for somebody who comes in and like almost love bombs us at the beginning. That feels really good. And we love that because they're answering our primal question with a yes. But there's a lot of downside to that. And oftentimes we will start living in codependent relationships or unfortunately toxic relationships just because the need is being met, that core need that is really profound and powerful in our lives. But there's so many other downsides in this relationship. And so one of the things I always encourage people to do is the reason why this matters and the reason why knowing your primal question and understanding the need is because when you are living in a healthy awareness of that need, you actually keep yourself from perhaps meeting that need in an unhealthy way.
Mm-hmm. You just read my diary because am I loved, and a lot of my dating journey was spent getting love bombed, and then being like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. And I loved it. And you're answering my primal question with a yes. And I just, as you were saying that, I'm like, yes. And then you kind of overlook a lot of the other things because at least a lot of times, especially in the beginning, they're answering your primal question for me with a yes.
Would you say there's a ripple effect? So not only do you maybe compromise and you're just so fixated on finding someone who loves you, you'll take anyone who gives you that, whether it's a good one or a sloppy second. But it's also that ripple effect of you'll also put the horse blinders on to any of the red flags or deal breakers or traits.
I did.
Because you're so concerned about this one question.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing where I'm so committed to people understanding their question, understanding this need, because it influences so much of your life. And here's what happens is when you carry this primal question and you keep asking it, whether it's, am I loved? Am I safe? Am I successful? Whatever the question might be, you put it out to the world and then in your relationships. And when it gets answered with a yes, life is good. Life feels really good. But the problem is when you put that question out to the world or to a relationship or to a dating partner, and it comes back with a no or a maybe to that question, am I loved? Well, maybe, okay, or no. What happens is we then go into what I call the scramble. And the scramble is all the unhealthy ways we try to force a yes to our primal question. So if you are getting a no or a maybe from your romantic partner here, and what happens is you will figure out a way to get that need met. And oftentimes it's part of our scramble, our unhealthy coping mechanisms, living in denial, our codependency, whatever the thing is, whatever the strategy is, we figured out how to meet that need. For example, my primal question is, am I safe? So the way my scramble looks like is, well, I can meet that need in an unhealthy way through hypervigilance and control. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that way I force the need of safety to be met. Yeah. Well, most of us can look at hypervigilance and control, go, yeah, that's probably not the best strategy for meeting your need. But if I don't know I'm doing this, if I don't see how my scramble is undermining my life or undermining my romantic relationships, then I'm really living at a disservice. And so when I tell people, like, the reason why you want to focus on the need more than emotions or behaviors or choices, because once you understand the need, you really understand everything about you. You understand why you do what you do. It is I would say the primal question is a thing underneath the thing that is driving everything. And so when we enter in romantic relationships, you want to understand the thing driving the thing. And if you don't, you're going to unfortunately get into a lot of unhealthy romantic relationships.
Yep. I would say, I would want to know from you your thought on this. I think, I've seen a lot of dating shows out there these days. Love is Blind is, one of my top favorites. And people here on the podcast know I watch that show. And, it's so interesting. I watch it mainly from a dating coach perspective because I find it fascinating. I think it's so interesting. Why are these people being drawn to each other? They can't see each other. Why are they being drawn to each other through the wall? And usually it's because they are meeting some needs for them, or there's some other weird superficial things like, oh, the first dance at your parents' wedding was the same first dance at my parents' wedding. It's weird stuff. But I think sometimes maybe we're looking too much, in my opinion, to people to fill all of our needs. Like, I will only choose you if you fill all of my needs. What does the knowing our primal question do? Once we know what our need is, do we now approach that relationship as like, let's say I'm loved is my question. It is. Would I approach JJ if we were dating as like, hey, this is my question. So I need you to make me feel loved all the time because that's my need, because I think that's what some people are doing. Well, like, you have to make me feel loved all the time because that's my need. How would you approach this in that setting once you figured out what the question is?
Yeah, such a great question, Kate, because I think there is a lot of misinformation about what my responsibility is in meeting for me, I've been married for 30 years. My wife's primal question is, am I loved? My primal question is, am I safe? So what is a healthy relationship to them meeting my need? Well, the first thing I'd say to that is not your spouse's or your partner's full responsibility to meet that need. Okay. What the healthier, I think, empowered place that we come at meeting needs and talking about needs with, whether it be friends, coworkers, or romantic relationships, is first and foremost, it's an invitation to participate in that need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you put your need out in front of JJ, I would like you to love me. I have the need to be loved, to be seen, heard, and known. That's an invitation for him to participate in that, but that's not an expectation that he is fully responsible for meeting that need.
Right.
Because there's two other partners or participators in this. Number one, God wants to meet that need. So whatever your question is, I believe like our relationship with God says, like he wants to answer that with a huge yes, a gigantic resounding yes. So if your question is, am I good enough? God wants to answer that question and say, yes, you are worthy, valuable, no questions asked. You are good enough. Okay. If my question is, am I safe? God wants to answer that with a yes. And so we look to God to answer that question and meet that need. Yeah. We look to, again, other people to participate in meeting that need. But probably the most important part of having a need met is we answer our own question.
Yes.
See, here's the thing, like when we kind of give all the power away to the external forces, and not saying that God's like an external force, but in a sense, he's out there and he's coming in, or our friends are out there and they're coming in to meet the need, or our spouse is out there and they're coming in to meet the need. We forget about, we actually are probably in many ways giving too much power away. Okay. And so like part of our needs and understanding our needs is taking personal ownership of that. Okay. And so like I am most responsible for my safety. So the thing where we get kind of tripped up is because this happens in our early childhood, right? Mm-hmm. When I think about safety, or Kate, maybe when you think about love, we got to figure out what JJ's.
I know, we got to get him to fess up over here.
Yeah.
But when we think about that, so often we bring what I just call the kid logic version of ourselves, or this little kid or this young version of ourselves to that need. And we start using the strategies of our childhood to meet that need. So for example, Kate, maybe part of your way of getting love as a child was like to be the good kid, okay, to be perfect, to be well behaved, whatever. Okay, so and it was all this transactional love, right?
Yeah,
and you felt like the only way to do that to get love was to be good. Or I felt like as a kid, the only way for me to feel safe was to figure everything out and to predict everything and to know everything. And that was the way that can be safe. But that's the little version of us in terms of meeting that need. What we need to do is invite our adult self, our healthy, wise adult self, and say, okay, the need is there, but am I going to meet that need through the scramble, through the kid logic, through the little version of myself to meet that need?
Right.
Or is adult Mike Foster going to show up? And see, what I got to remind myself is like, I'm 6'4", 220 pounds. Okay. I can protect myself.
Yeah, you can.
Right now, when I was a little kid,
and you got some arms too. I've seen you wear that medium shirt.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But we forget that we have so much power and so much say and resource and voice in meeting our own needs. So much of my work with people in executive coaching is based on this whole framework of self-advocating versus self-abandonment. And I think what happens is when we notice our life and we notice this need and it's going unmet, we just abandon ourselves and we go to this scramble, we go to the kid logic, we don't ask for what we need. There's just this abandonment. Healthy people and healthy relationships are relationships of self-advocacy. Now, this isn't selfishness. This isn't sort of like arrogance. This is like, I'm responsible here. I always tell couples like an unspoken expectation is an unfair expectation. So if you have a need that you want your partner to meet, it is your responsibility to communicate it. But Kait and JJ, it's fascinating to me, like when I talk to couples, how they're talking about everything but that.
Totally. Well, two phrases that really changed my entire life would be, number one, I am individually responsible for my needs and my feelings. And not only did that help me maybe not have to prioritize somebody else's as my responsibility, I could have a healthy relationship with Kait's needs and feelings, meaning I could be invited into them, but I'm not obligated. I'm not a slave to her needs and feelings in the most loving way, because there's almost this Christian idea in marriage, right? Like the two become one, but it's like this co-regulation, codependent, you know? So number one, I'm individually responsible for my needs and my feelings. And two, like I'm responsible. Like I have power here. I'm empowered to meet those needs. I'm empowered to see those feelings and regulate them. And then two, I really love this one. There's no substitute for the most powerful voice in your heart, mind, and soul, which is your voice, right? And you can hear from Kait. I can hear from Kait. I can hear from you. I can hear from other people. But it's just like a temporary shot of like belief and confidence. And until I truly believe I am safe, I am wanted, I am secure, whatever it is, nothing really is going to change about my life until I truly believe it. But my question for you is, where did that not happen for us to, as adults, be operating that kid logic, that scramble? Is that skill kind of learned in the maybe teenage to young adult years? Like we actually learn we can self-advocate in a healthy home, we can ask, we can make our requests known, we can share our needs vulnerably, because it is vulnerable. I think at the end of the day, I think that's why we don't do it, right? It's vulnerable to have your needs, and you learn as a kid, obviously it's not really welcome here. But where did that skill kind of just not really transition and get learned for us?
I think there's a lot of different things that happen for us to become adults who don't share our needs or don't honor our needs or advocate for our needs. So I would say for many of us, we grew up in families where there was no room for our needs. Okay. There's just no time, no room. Mom and dad were not interested. And so we just learned that whatever the need was, I guess nobody really cares. Okay. So that's a very powerful imprint, by the way, for a child. And it's an imprint that many of us as adults still operate from. So I'd challenge that thinking, number one. The other thing I think that happens within church, I think sometimes there's a lot of messaging that says, for you to have a need makes you selfish. Okay. Because our whole posture as Christians should be, we are just concerned with everybody else's needs and not our own. Okay. So sometimes there's a theological framework that we're working from that makes our needs negative. Okay. And not Christ-like. I don't accept that at all, but I know that theology or that kind of religious belief is out there. The other thing that happens is these imprints of our questions and the primal question sometimes gets imprinted through trauma. Okay. That was my story. There's sexual abuse in my early childhood by a family friend. So there's trauma that's happening, and trauma can be very, very powerful in shaping our core beliefs around our needs. But it isn't always the case. Let me give you just kind of a different perspective on a different story. So I have a client that I work with, and his primal question is, am I successful? And his imprint, and the thing that he really remembers very clearly about his childhood, was him playing Little League baseball. And remembered every time he would pitch well and the team would win, he'd get in the car ride home with his dad, and his dad would be super talkative. There'd be lots of positive energy. And he remembers those moments very distinctly. But then he also remembers getting in the car when he would pitch poorly and perhaps the team would lose. Dad would be quiet in the car on the ride home. Now, none of us would say that's trauma or traumatic, but it's shaping something within my client around success. And basically the lesson learned is winning means relationship with dad.
Wow.
Losing means disconnection from dad. Yeah. And so as kids, we're just these sponges trying to figure out how the world works with big, important questions around safety and love and belonging and success and value and security. Like we're trying to figure it out, and we're paying attention to how the adults respond to our needs, to different events. And we then come to these conclusions about safety. We come to these conclusions about how to best get love, how to best be good enough. We come to these conclusions, and unfortunately, a lot of them, and a lot of us listening right now, need to reinvestigate those conclusions. We need to look at that again and say, is the operating system around my needs and my life and my choices and how I do relationships, is it birthed from the confusion of a child, or is it being decided on by a healthy adult? And so I always tell people is like, you do not want the fourth grade version of you running your adult life today. Okay. It's just a bad strategy. And yet if we don't look at these things, we don't really take a look under the hood, see that primal need, understand our question, then in many ways we're allowing a kid to run an adult life.
I don't know though, because my fourth grade self was pretty successful and really awesome. Actually, I got A++++. I'm just kidding.
No. Kate, no. Fun fact about Kate is like a 13-year-old. She'd wake up like 4:30 and practice.
It was 10 years old, but yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's just,
At 10, even better. She'd wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, practice her flute, do her homework, do her hair in a different style every day. Like
it was the thing. Yes. Thank you.
I'd be concerned about my kid if they were doing that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the executive coach to me goes like, why?
Yeah.
What were you wanting?
Yeah,
exactly. What did that kind of attention to, waking up early, making sure your hair was right, studying.
Yes.
What did that get you?
For me, it was, I wanted to perform, to feel seen, and me doing the hair a different way every day. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be people to notice me in a healthy way. I wanted to feel loved and seen by other people. I wanted to be the first chair flute because then I would be really seen, Yes. So it's a lot of performance. I know you love the thought of me with my hairdo. I got to get a picture and show you. I do have a question though. I think it's funny, kind of like the love languages, with Gary Chapman. When we know our love language, sometimes we then maybe project project that onto the other person of like, maybe that's their love language too. Can we sometimes do that when it comes to our primal question, thinking that maybe this person I'm dating is also wanting that, and therefore I'm going to try to show them that? How can it be maybe helpful and maybe also damaging to have that mentality in dating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that the research shows is that we will take our primal question and we will put it over everybody else, and we'll assume they are asking the same question that we're asking. And then what we do is we, over the years, have become experts in answering our own question, which means we have a superpower of answering that question for others. So, for example, Kate, your "Am I loved?" question, you take that because that's what you need, love. You think everybody else is asking that same question, "Am I loved?" And you do an incredible job answering that with a yes for everybody else. You're probably, I know this about you, but you're a great listener. You see people, you value people, right? This is just how you show up in the world. But that's all through the lens and driven by your primal question. See, that I would say the thing that you need most is the thing that you most want to give away. And so within the question comes a really powerful gift that you have. Now, what's interesting is that is a very specific perspective on what people need. Now, I have a different primal question.
Right.
Okay? It's funny because I talk to my wife all the time and I just tell her, I don't really care if you love me. Okay. It's nice. It's a nice option. I appreciate that. What's more important to me is to feel safe. Okay. And so safety in our relationship looks like, just tell me the truth, good or bad news. No passive aggressive communication, just be straight up, be clear. That's actually how you love me, is through helping me feel safe. And so what we have to always be aware of is not only our primal question and our tendency to attune to that question in other people and try to answer it with a yes. We actually have to be the upgrade here is we actually need to understand what our spouse's primal question is. We need to understand what our friend's primal question is, and then look for ways to answer that with a yes versus just defaulting to our own.
Yeah, I do think that a lot. I'm like, well, everyone wants to be loved, right? So this is great. I'm just going to show this to everybody. Now, we've been putting this off, but JJ, I want you to reveal to us what yours is. And then Mike, I would love for you also to answer the question, like, are there some that are more prominent than others? But JJ, can you finally reveal to us that you've been keeping a secret this whole episode?
Sure. So you're "Am I safe?" You're "Am I loved?" I used to think it was "Am I loved?" based off just the initial descriptions. And then I took the test, which will include in the YouTube.
I don't like it as a test, the assessment, right?
Sorry.
This test sounds so like
we're not grading.
I'm back in fourth grade again.
What about evaluation?
Evaluation, I guess. Sure.
Sounds a little bit more professional. Okay. Well, my evaluation result was "Am I wanted?" actually. So I was a little surprised, but I started thinking about that being maybe the primal lens and question that I'm constantly thinking about, or seeking, especially from Kate. And I really looked for when I was most disappointed or upset or sad and didn't really feel like I was having my needs met. And I'm like, oh, wow, I was actually wanting to be wanted. Like that's what I wanted to hear and listen and see.
That with you.
So good. So powerful. And Kate, just as a coaching opportunity for you and JJ, one of the most powerful things when somebody has a Q4, the primal question, "Am I wanted?" The concept of pursuit is primary here. So one of the things that, and this is where this gets really fun, is because once we understand somebody's primal question, we can really dial this in and have this really powerful connection with people because we're attuning to their most important need. And so JJ, I would guess, again, I don't want to, this is just kind of generally what the research says. When Kate is pursuing you, really seeking you out, wanting connection with you, that just feels freaking amazing.
It does. But what's funny is I constantly would question or wonder, do you really want and enjoy me, or do you want to enjoy me because I do something for you? You know, because there's that kind of like unhealthy way of thinking, am I wanted by just being needed and available and fixing and helping and serving and loving people? And like, yeah, of course we want you because you do a lot for us, right? But it's like, no. I just, the most powerful words for me, right, is I love you because I love you. And I enjoy you just because I enjoy you. Like, just period, you know, like nothing attached to it. I just, I like you because I like you.
JJ, so that's a great, so one of the things I'm curious about with you is when you're getting a no to that question from Kait, and again, most of this is totally unintentional. We don't know that we're answering our spouse's question with a no or a maybe, but it does happen. So what happens when you feel like you're getting a no or maybe from Kait? What does your scramble look like? Really, the way of how do you try to force a yes to the question? In what ways do you might abandon yourself to get that yes from her?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I actually feel like I withdraw and try to find it elsewhere, you know, from like my guy friends or other friends and relationships. So I'll probably, you know, kind of withdraw from Kait and you know, go find it elsewhere. I think that's maybe one of the easier ways as I think about it just off the top of my head. That's an easier path to finding that yes.
Yeah. It's good. And again, that speaks to really the thesis of why we need to, or the reason why we need to talk about this is because that need will be contended with. It will get met. And so we're foolish if we think that need, we can just suppress that need and go, oh, it's okay if Kait doesn't meet that need. It's all right. And what happens for a lot of us is when we don't really honor that need, oftentimes we do think we will get that need met in an unhealthy way. And I'm not saying going out with the guys is an unhealthy way.
Well, no, it makes me sad because I'm like, I'm not meeting it in a healthy way with my wife. You know, like I'm missing so much healthy relationship.
He's not leaning in or communicating it to me. He's just like, I'll just go elsewhere then.
So, you know, I am getting it met, but I would actually say there's a healthier, better way that I would love to have it met, which is with Kait and a healthy invite.
Now, Mike, are there some questions that are maybe more prominent? Just as people are out there on the dating field, you know, dating and relationship, like, has there been some that you're like, oh, these ones are stand out? I mean, I'm sure obviously there's 7 and it's that you've whittled it down for a reason, but is there any few that are like, that you see pop up a lot?
Yeah. So, absolutely. In terms of the research and again, the data does bring several questions are a bit more common than others. I do want to say this, to be clear that all of us have some version of all 7 questions within us. It's not all of a sudden like, I don't need love. Okay. And or, I don't need purpose. It's really the framework is really set up for you to understand the most important need. And that's the one that we really need to manage in a healthy way and be very aware of. But question 1, am I safe? Question 3, am I loved? Gets quite and none of these are like extreme. Like it's just a little bit higher bump than maybe some of the others. And then it's kind of a tie between 6 and 7. Am I good enough? And purpose. Those tend to pop quite a bit. But they're all, again, important. And I think there's sometimes a lot of people ask, like, can you have more than one primal question? That is possible. And there's one of the kind of the different things that the research shows is that if you had a lot of trauma in your early childhood, basically no needs were met, none of the questions were answered with a yes or affirmed, then it's possible to have a lot more questions at play for you. Also, you can have a question imprinted later on in life. So when we talk about the primal question, we're talking about early childhood imprints. but you can have a question imprinted later on in life. I'll give you an example. Let's say your early childhood question was, do I have purpose? Okay. That's what happened in your early childhood. There's confusion around meaning and impact. But let's say, God forbid, you are attacked in a dark alleyway and physically assaulted in your 20s. Well, you could see how the question, am I safe, is now going to play a part in your life. And the whole point of this, Kait and JJ, is I'm not trying to put a label on people. I'm not trying to put you in a box. I'm not trying to what I'm trying to do is help you understand something below the surface about yourself, give it language so you can be much more empowered around this thing called needs. And so I don't care if you have all 7 questions. I don't care if you have 1 question. I don't care if your question gets imprinted early on and then later on. The thing is, I want you to understand the question that's driving your life. I want you to understand the scramble of how you meet that in an unhealthy way. And I also want you to understand the gift that comes from that question about you taking your question and putting it over everybody else.
Now, some of the questions, do they impact relationships more? Like they seem a little more relational. And then secondly can we have like a head start in singleness? Because it does feel like there's some elements to us that don't really get exposed until we get into deep romantic dating relationships, right? They kind of pop up and you're like, oh, what is this that was there maybe, the whole time that I didn't know about. And with the primal questions, like some of those might get maybe more exposed in dating relationships. Would you say?
Yeah. Number one, I wouldn't start any romantic relationship with somebody if I didn't know their primal question. That's how important it is to know this piece of data.
Yeah.
Because it really allows you to see the matrix of this person. You understand their triggers, you understand how they communicate, you understand their gifts. And so to me, it's like, I don't want to be guessing at this stuff with somebody. I don't want to take 2 years to finally get to the core of who you are. I want to understand that at the beginning. So I'd encourage, if you're about to enter a relationship or you're in the early days of a relationship, take the assessment and have, for you and for whoever you're dating, so that you have this framework and you have this awareness of each other. Because fundamentally, you cannot be in a lasting relationship with anybody who continues to answer your primal question with a no or a maybe. So couples need to sit down and say, okay, this is what no's look like for me. Okay. When you do this feels like a no. But also couples need to discuss, this is what a yes looks like. And how do we do more of that in a relationship? And so a lot of times relationships fail, not because of you didn't take me on enough dates, or, arguing about money, or marriages fail because of, all the different reasons. They fail because a primal question continued to be neglected.
Yeah.
And that's why they fail.
So
because go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so a huge deal breaker for a relationship is if you are inviting them in a healthy way, right? That's like the premise.
Yeah.
To answer your primal question, and it's a consistent inability to meet that need, that's not going to work.
Or desire to try to connect with that in that need. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that we have to be aware of too, it's, we talk about kind of the simplicity of the framework and a question, but it actually is quite complex when I'm very clear on the need around safety. I have a PhD in safety. Kait, you have a PhD in love. JJ, you have a PhD in belonging. But then we start getting into these other questions, and it's like speaking Chinese. We don't understand it.
Yeah,
okay?
very true.
It's difficult. Our need makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So it actually, and interestingly enough, when you are in a relationship with somebody that either has your same primal question or a question that's close to your question in terms of the number, the easier the relationship's going to be. But the farther the number is from your question, the more difficult it's going to be. So I'll give you an example, like a 1, primal question 1, am I safe? And primal question number 7, do I have purpose? There couldn't be more different concepts than those needs, okay? And so those two, if you're let's say your romantic partner or your spouse or someone you're dating, you guys are 1s and 7s. One of you is going to be speaking English and the other one's going to be speaking Chinese. So you're going to have to work at it a little bit harder because those concepts are so foreign to each other versus like, I think the relationship between the two of you works so well is because Kate's primal question is, am I loved? Question 3. And JJ's primal question is, am I wanted? Primal question number 4. They're right next to each other. Now they're different. There's some different nuances there, but there's enough, like maybe it's, one has a New York accent, and one has a Southern accent. You guys are still speaking English and you get each other, right?
Yeah,
it's not too hard to attune to each other's need. But the farther the numbers apart, the more difficult.
Yes. I love it. That's so good. Mike, this has been such a great, I feel like basis for people to go take the assessment. You guys go take the primal question. We'll include it in the show notes and on YouTube. You can see the link here. But it's just such a great place it's simple. You know, what I love about all the things you do is you break it down in a way that is very simple for people
even I can
understand.
It's so
it's
simple.
not like, oh, here are 30 different options for what you might be. It's like 7, and it's very digestible and easy to have a conversation because you could probably remember all 7 too and be like, oh yeah. So I just really appreciate you doing this work and taking the time to share this with our people today. And I want to encourage you singles and people in relationships, you guys, this tool is so transformative. Please, please, please go and look into it and really do some processing here and bring it up in conversation with the person you're dating. So yeah, Mike, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. It's been awesome being with you today.
The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kait and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring this show to you each week. I want to shout out Elena Gibson, our brand and community manager. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.